Wait.
Okay.
Tell us about the acquisition of Pinhook Swamp.
Okay. So Judy Hancock and a bunch of other people, she didn't initiate the effort actually, but she took it over and carried it through of getting the Pinhook Swamp acquired in order to connect the Osceola National Forest to the Okefenokee National Wildlife Refuge, making it one of the biggest wildlife areas in the country. And through her efforts and other people's efforts, but she'd just write letters after letters after letters and go talk to politicians and whatever, and wouldn't take no for an answer. Kind of like what Marjorie Carr would do, only a very different personality. So toward the end of that, I remember there was a U.S. Representative Crenshaw from Jacksonville, a Republican, who was on a committee, Forest Service maybe or whatever, that was kind of critical for getting the funding from the feds to do this. And Judy was dying of cancer. So she couldn't drive herself over there with her little black pickup truck. So I went up and I drove her over and we talked to this guy. And we got it done. It's really hard to say no.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I remember you being involved in is the Plum Creek, when they were, wanting to buy up
Oh,
the
yeah.
land,
Yeah, I got involved
east
in
of
that.
Gainesville, and you were really involved in reviewing all those plans and
Yeah,
identifying the parcels that was reasonable for them to develop and the ones that weren't.
and we won that battle.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was also a battle that had to do with the Santa Fe Swamp, which is like a 9,000 acre swamp that's the headwaters of the Santa Fe River. Georgia Pacific owned it, and they wanted to mine the peat. And they wanted to make a gigantic peat mine out of it. So we fought against that. And I remember nobody that we knew had ever walked across it or looked at the middle of it. I mean, you could see it from aerial photos. So I walked across it and then back. And that was fun.
Because you yell through the woods.
Oh yeah, I like that little part.
So when you advocated against it being a peat mine, was it in private ownership then? And
Yeah,
then
Georgia Pacific owned it.
and they owned it, and then you went on to help get it preserved?
Yeah, I don't remember the details, but it ended up being in public ownership. It's owned by the Swanee River Water Management District.
Can you talk more about, I remember the Plum Creek also, and I remember us having a meeting here at your house, and Charles Lee came up and Mike Byerly,
Yeah.
and you were connecting
Oh, yeah.
Charles Lee
I
and Mike
remember that.
Byerly. Can you talk about Plum Creek and what you were advocating for and the process, whatever
Oh.
you remember about that?
Well, it had to do with zoning. They wanted to rezone some of these big forestry parcels so that they could develop them and make more money. And the county had already spent a lot of time and money and effort in getting really good zoning for the county. And so it was an attack on that, is one way to look at it. So we defended the county's zoning rules, and so, and we won. And there's lots of details in there. But anyway,
And I think we diverged from Audubon, Florida on our position, didn't we? Audubon, Florida was more about let's be at the table
Yeah,
and
yeah.
not antagonize Plum Creek.
yeah, they weren't necessarily on our side.
Right.
Yeah,
'Cause I
yeah, they
think-
kind of,
I think we got some
they've been drinking the Kool-Aid.
we got some emails saying, you know, that this isn't the Audubon, Florida position.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we ran into that several times. We ran into that with management for Paynes Prairie too. George Kirkpatrick and other powerful people wanted Paynes Prairie to be managed by the Game Commission, and they wanted it to be managed, or the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and be managed for duck hunting. And so that was a kind of controversial issue where Elisha Audubon said, no, let's manage it based on ecology. And I'm sure we, you know, as time is going on, I'm sure we were absolutely right about that. Archie Carr was on our side. We had a powerful ally.
Well, and then again, a few, you know, another, it's probably a decade later, DEP wanted to institute grazing and lumbering and
Oh, yeah.
and the
That
Protect Paynes Prairie Coalition formed, and you were one of
We
the.
had a wonderful governor at the time. Scott was his name?
Yeah, Rick Scott.
And then he had appointed somebody, to be DNR chief. Anyway, yeah, they were trying to squeeze a little money out of all the state. They wanted to log places like San Velasco Hammock and have more grazing on Paynes Prairie and so on. Fortunately, I guess they've moved on, although Scott is a senator. He's in a position to do bad things. But, yeah.
Well, and I think our current governor's distracted by his presidential ambitions, so
Yeah.
DEP's just not on his radar.
Going back to the kestrels, how many, would you have any guess at how many kestrel boxes you have helped to install and what?
Yeah, I mean, I've written that up in reports in the past.
Yeah,
Around 150.
I've got that kind of stuff.
You've installed about helped install about 150? I know you've sent me up on ladders a few times.
I know. I remember it well. Sealand Creek Boulevard was
Yeah.
one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's used by kestrels every year.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But a lot of them we put up in places that just weren't good enough. The kestrels never used them. But they might have used half of them at one time or another.
So what makes for better kestrel habitat?
Well, it needs to be really open. Cattle pasture's perfect. If you had a lone cabbage palm or pine tree out in the middle of 1,000 acres of cattle pasture, you put a kestrel box on it, it'd probably get used. If you have 40 acres of cattle pasture and the only place to put the box is around the edge somewhere, that's probably not gonna work.
Mm-hmm.
Why not? Why not?
Well, the kestrels are smarter than we are, so they realize that if they're on the edge, flying squirrels can get to their nest and eat their eggs and babies. So they just don't like to nest in places like that.
Bob, didn't you have a role in the Orange Lake management when FWC wanted to herbicide. Like,
Yeah, that didn't turn out so well. But yes, I was sanctuary chairman for a number of years. So we had Bird Island out in Orange Lake, which and that's to let you know that didn't turn out well. Was a significant rookery. In fact, it was one of the only, maybe one of two rookeries in the entire state that didn't get decimated during the plume years when they were killing all the herons and egrets for plumes for ladies' hats. That was defended. Some of those wardens, some of them were shot. I mean, it was a dangerous job.
Yeah.
But that was one that was defended successfully. And there were thousands of birds, snowy egrets and great egrets and various other birds that nested there. Well, the Game Commission and the University of Florida, among others, wanted to manage Orange Lake so that people could get in and out of the boat ramps without getting blocked in by rafts of hyacinths. And they wanted to reduce spatterdock. There were big patches of spatterdock out there that were a hindrance to these $10,000 high-speed bass boats that people like George Kirkpatrick would ride around in. So they were doing a lot of herbicide spraying. Also, Orange Lake was pretty famous for floating islands. Well, if a floating island floated in and blocked a boat ramp, oh, that was terrible. So they wanted to get rid of all the floating islands, which is a unique and ecologically valuable part of Orange Lake, but they poisoned all of them. They got rid of them. Well, in the process, they poisoned Bird Island. They killed all the bushes, the birds left, and they haven't come back. They wiped out an ancient, really important rookery, basically on purpose. They won't admit it's on purpose, but I got some nasty letters from University of Florida and the Game Commission for pointing this out. Yeah, so that's a battle. That's a major battle that we lost, and it's not coming back.
Is the island itself still there?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's no place for a bird to nest, though.
Mm.
All the bushes are dead.
but the FWC more recently than that wanted to herbicide Orange Lake again,
Oh yeah, they herbicide
and they
every
came
year.
to us and tried to get us to be stakeholders
Yeah.
and support it, and we said no. We would conditionally, if they put in large buffers around Bird Island and other islands,
Right.
and
Yeah, I used to go to those meetings,
mhm.
but the meetings are basically swamped by,
Fishermen and hunters that want boat access.
yeah.
Hmm.
So we don't count for much there. And plus, we've lost the fight. There's a big rookery out off of Cedar Key somewhere that we've lost as well.
Yeah.
We weren't involved in that fight.
Well, I don't think that they've never really
And it's not
determined
clear
why.
why.
Yeah.
Do you remember Keep the Bar Open, Bar Hammock? When they wanted to close part of Bar Hammock, and Audubon, the Conservation Committee, and John Hennemister was on the board at that time, and So they wanted to close one of the landowners whose house faces it, wanted to close the rim trail around
Right.
Bar Hammock. And so you would go part of the way around, then have to reverse.
Yeah.
And so John Hennemister came up with the slogan, "Keep the bar open." And we made little
Yeah.
pens, and we went to the county commission meeting, and you were involved in that.
Yes. Yeah, I took Chuck Chestnut out there and showed him what it was.
Mhm.
It was a really nasty, extreme Republican operative guy. He wanted his own access to that trail.
And he had it.
And
Hadn't he built
and he
a-
built
a
it. He
little
actually, yeah,
ramp
he had
or
actually
something?
built an access to the trail so he could use it, but the public couldn't use it. Well, it's public land.
I think that was very important because Audubon was very instrumental in keeping that trail open to the public.
Yeah. And those guys, that guy was so nasty. He came to a land conservation board meeting with a couple other guys, and they set up video cameras and recorded the meeting, and they basically attacked us for having that trail there. They were nasty people. Yeah. I don't think they intimidated me or anybody else there. They certainly didn't intimidate John Henner and Mr.
Well, and the county commission did vote to keep it open,
Yeah,
so we prevailed on that one.
yep. We won that one.
A lot of important battles.
Yeah.
Yeah, yep, you can't win them all, but we've won a lot of important battles.
Well, and the vision of acquiring San Velasco State Park, that would be all homes now, if
Oh,
we
yeah.
hadn't done that back in the
Yeah.
70s, you know?
Oh, yeah. It would all look like the Hammock 1 and Hammock 2 subdivisions.
Yeah.
Or probably worse, it'd probably be much higher density by now.
Yeah, you might have a shopping center out there now.
Yeah, right,
Another Publix.
yeah.
Golf courses.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Is there anything else that you want to reflect on with Audubon that comes to mind?
Well, one of the things that comes to mind, and this is just my opinion, is probably the most important thing. I mean, it's really important for us to identify conservation issues where we can have a positive impact and advocate. That's been my role. And I think that's really important. The other thing that I think is really important are the field trips. That's why I joined to start with. And the field trips are extremely educational. You know, somebody that doesn't know birds very well can go on those field trips and learn all about the birds.
And then they can get involved in conservation issues.
Yeah, and then they care and start
Yeah.
caring about it.
Yeah. It's a win-win.
It's the gateway drug.
Yeah, right.
So some of this other stuff that we do is less important than that, I think. I think the internship stuff is great. That's really important.
And with field trips, we have 5 different programs for field
I know.
trips.
It's,
Yeah, it's not just the weekend field
I
trips
know.
now. It's
Yeah. And it's all good.
mhm.
Yeah, if you have to be drinking beer while you're looking at birds, I have no problem with that.
We probably average 30 people on all the Birds and Brews trips.
Yeah.
They're really popular.
I think that's a great
Yeah.
thing that we do.
And they're almost all new
Yeah,
birders. You know, we loan out all our binoculars almost every time.
yeah, I think that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Bob.
Oh, you're
This-
welcome.
I know this barely touches on the 52 years of your tenure on
Yeah.
Audubon, but these are the highlights that come to mind for you that
Yeah.
have been important, that have been impactful for you and impactful for the community.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish I could remember names and dates better. There's so many people that were involved in all that. And that's the one real weakness of this interview, is that I'm not mentioning everybody. Michael Meisenberg was one of the people he was president for a while. John Wynn was president, I think maybe 5 years in a row or something like that. He was a really good president. Somebody named Debbie Siegel's been president for a while. She's a really good president. Yeah.
And Anne, you were president?
Well, I was kind of a caretaker president.
Yeah, I was president twice, and I was sort of the same thing. I just wanted to hold it all together until somebody else could come along. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Bob. Thank you for this. This was really special.
And thanks for everything you've done for Alachua Audubon and for Gainesville.
Yes.
Well, thank you for bringing me a good lunch.
Now you get to take a nap.
Yes, exactly.
That was great. That was just great. And you remembered a lot of stuff, Bob. You really remembered a lot of stuff, all the